All right, so here let's start out by looking at the study of cells. And so let's look at definition first. So cytology, this is going to be the study of cells that's only visible under a microscope. And we use the term micrometers in terms of the unit that we measure cells in. So to give you a point of reference, 1 centimeter is going to be equal to 10,000 micrometers. And so cells within the body, which there are over trillions of them, will vary from very small of 7 micrometers of red blood cells to the largest cell within the body at 120 micrometers. So very small. However, with the oocyte, the egg, we're able to see this with the naked eye. Every other cell, though, we do need to have a microscope. Typically, cells are going to vary in terms of their size and shape, depending on their location. So some are going to be flat, some will be cylindrical, some oval and irregular in shape. And we'll talk about a prototypic cell, however, know that they're all going to vary when we look at them. All right, this table is just going to give you a point of reference. Okay, so here we have what we can see with a naked eye. Human oocyte, again, only cell that we can actually see without a microscope. Then what we use are light microscopes, which you will practice in lab. And this is going to be between 1 micrometer and about 110, 115 micrometers, okay? And majority of what we'll see will be visible under the light microscope. However, then some organelles, then we'll have to use a special type of microscope called an electron microscope that will look at the smaller structures. So for instance, we're looking things like DNA and RNA, ribosomes, different organelles within the body. Now, it's important for anatomy to understand that form is going to define function. Okay, so let's talk about some of the different functions of all our cells. So covering, this is going to be one of them. So epithelial cells, for instance, are going to have sheets and they're going to cover surfaces. For instance, our skin made up of epithelial cells. And then what we have is different lining. Here we go again with epithelial cells, and so this is going to line the internal surfaces of our organs, for example, esophagus, small intestine. Well, we also have function of storage, and this is going to be for some of our cells that are going to play more of a role than others. Like for instance, what we'll have are fat cells or adipocytes. Their purpose is to store energy. Also in the liver, storing energy. All right, then what we have is movement. So this will be our muscle cells. And so they're going to have different proteins in them that they can contract and relax. And so that allows us to move about. And these muscles then are going to be attached to different bones to help with movement of the body, okay, for skeletal muscle. All right, so next one is going to be a connection. And so what we have are connective tissue then that will help and support the organs within the body so that they're not all moving about. Every time we take a walk, we're not having, say, all the stuff go to the right side and then swoosh over to the left. Okay, so it helps to keep it stabilized within the body. Next is defense, and we have different blood cells, the white blood cells that are going to be important for detecting pathogens and antigens, which is going to be anything that's foreign to the body. And so if it detects it as foreign, it's going to attack and kill anything that might be harmful to us. Now their function is communication, big thing. So nerve cells are going to conduct nerve impulses to other parts of the body, and so this is where then we'll get movement. For instance, endocrine cells are going to produce different hormones, and then they'll have little receptors on them that will go to where they need to be, even though they're distributed from or within the blood. Okay, and then last function, reproduction here. And so for us to perpetuate, a lot of this stems from stem cells or germ cells, and this decreases as we age. Also, the sperm and the egg are going to be produced, and so that we can generate another generation of human beings. All right, here we're looking at a prototypical cell, and so for this is just it gives you an idea of what type of organelles, little organs as they're defined or translated to, are found within the cell, and some characteristics that they'll have. So first and foremost, all cells are going to have a nucleus, a cytoplasm, and a plasma membrane. Okay, plasma membrane, this is sometimes also called the cell membrane, and so this is going to regulate what's going to enter and exit the cell. Cytoplasm, this is going to be the term for which we have all of the contents that are found within the cell, and this is suspended in a type of viscous fluid. The nucleus, this is going to be our master control center, and it's going to have proteins being made and formed, and it's going to direct then the function and the structure of each individual cell. So let's take a look at the structure of the plasma membrane, and what I want you to understand is that it's going to be a very dynamic and changing structure. Okay, it's not going to be static and rigid, and a lot of it will depend on what other molecules are going to be formed with it. So let's take a look. So let's start with the phospholipid bilayer. Okay, so what this means is that there are going to be two molecules here that are going to point towards one another, and this is going to then separate the extracellular, so outside of the cell, versus the intracellular, inside the cell. What we have are these different tails, so here in the yellow, and these are going to be composed of lipids, and they hate water, so they are going to be repelled by water, versus then these phosphate heads that are going to be in purple, which like water, and so they're going to be attracted then to the extracellular environment and the intracellular environment. What we also find are different molecules of cholesterol. So yes, it is important to have cholesterol in your diet because it helps really with the plasma membrane structure and to help regulate what's coming into and out of the cells. The purpose for it is that it helps to strengthen the membrane and also stabilize it during different temperature extremes. So like with exercising, these are very important because it helps from keeping or having the cells overheat. So about 20% of the plasma membrane is cholesterol. All right, another thing that you'll find are going to be different glycolipids and a glycocalyx. And so what these are going to be carbohydrate strings that and molecules that are going to be attached and to different proteins or within the plasma membrane. Purpose for here is for communication and for detecting one another. So think of like a hormone, if it's being created within the brain but needs to be sent all the way down to say the ovaries or the testes, then it has to have these different signals that it can communicate and know exactly where it needs to go. Okay, and then last but not least, what we have are different proteins and protein channels. So this will allow different ions and molecules to come in and out, and these will be regulated by these channels. The cytoplasm, this is going to be all of the contents that's going to be inside of the cell, so intracellular, and it's going to be everything but the nucleus. So it will hold different organelles, and we'll talk about that later, but also have different things like inclusions, which we see right here in this brown color. These inclusions are found in some cells, not all, and one example is that it helps to store different materials. So for instance, what we have is melanin, like within the skin, and so we'll have the pigmentation of our skin will be due to how much melanin are found within these inclusions. Another example, glycogen, which is going to be a sugar and that stores this extra source of energy within our liver and our skeletal muscle. Another thing that we have is the cytosol, and so the cytosol here is going to be the fluid of the cytoplasm. And so what it does is it helps suspend the organelles, but know that the organelles are going to be able to move about.